Hi, DMC. I'm Naomi Trenkamp. I'm a senior here at Des Moines Christian, and I get the honor to interview Dr. Tim Elmore. So, Dr. Elmore is a leadership expert, author, and is the founder of Growing Leaders. Um, could you talk a little bit more about Growing Leaders and like what that is for
Yeah,
people?
sure. Growing Leaders is a nonprofit organization that partners with schools, sports clubs, colleges, anywhere students gather.
Hmm.
And our whole goal is to take that student that might not see themselves as a leader. I'm just an ordinary person trying to figure out life, and really let them see there's influence inside of you, a God-given influence that everybody has. So, and then we want to bring that out. So we teach leadership with images because we think pictures are worth 1,000 words. So,
Yeah.
and you guys are screenagers, right? So we'll do an image like thermostat and thermometer,
Hmm.
and we say people usually end up looking a little bit like a thermometer, only reflecting the temperature or setting the
Hmm.
temperature. We want to help students see I can set the temperature for where I
Hmm.
am, and we talk about how. So it's lots of conversations, experiences, pictures,
Yeah.
but it's the funnest way to learn that I've ever discovered. And we love what we get to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and you also talk with parents also, is that
Yeah, we
correct?
do.
Yeah.
And the reason we do is not because I think I'm some sort of guru for all parents, but we notice that parents and teachers and coaches, for that matter, are kind of in a little bit of a quandary as how do I connect with
Yeah.
a student today? You
Mhm.
guys have grown up in a very different world than the one we grew up in.
Yes.
So we try to help them understand how to engage and connect with students
Mhm.
so that they can deliver some timeless principles that you'll need. So a big phrase I like to use is we got to be timely. We got to
Mhm.
understand the times we're in and timeless. Make sure you don't leave behind those timeless truths every generation's going to need when they get out into the world.
Yes. Awesome. Oh my goodness. Um, I just have a few questions here, but what is like a challenge you see in today's students that previous generations didn't experience for like that
Yeah.
leadership role?
The easiest answer to that question is the anxiety thing right now.
Mhm.
As you well know, even in a good Christian school, anxiety levels are up, even
Mhm.
in people that love the Lord. So mental health issues are a thing. It's been normalized almost.
Mhm.
When we work with public schools, many of them say we can't keep enough counselors on the campus for all the needs that they have. So I'm not saying it's everywhere, but I'm saying it's being normalized. And I think we're going to have to figure out how do we meet the Prince of Peace
Yes.
that passes all understanding? How do we be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, make our requests be made known to God? And then the peace of God, which passes all understanding, keeps our hearts and mind. So I think that's a big one. What I just told the faculty yesterday in our
Mhm.
meeting is Gen Z has a high sense of agency and a high sense of anxiety. So the agency means I feel like I got this. I got a phone. I know what I'm doing.
Yes.
But then anxiety is I don't got this. I'm overwhelmed right now. What do I do?
Yeah.
So I think leaders like moms and dads and teachers are going to have to coach a little bit more than we used to coach, but listen a little bit more than we used to listen.
Yes, listening is a big thing. I
It's
feel like
huge.
it's
Yeah.
very huge. Kind of going back to like parents too.
Yeah.
Um, but what is one way like like what's the most effective way for a parent to teach responsibility and self-discipline to younger people like their student or their kids and whatever?
I would say there's no one right answer, I don't think, to that question, but the best answer I know of is um, to change their locus of control.
Hmm.
And I know that's a big psychological word, so let me explain. Guys, 70 years ago, there was a professor, Dr. Julian Rotter, that began to test students on whether they were graduating with an internal locus or an external locus. The difference is this. If you have an external locus of control, you somehow are looking outside of yourself, like it's somebody else's fault, it's somebody else's responsibility, it's somebody else's. If my teacher would only, if my coach would just, if my boyfriend would only, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And as you well know, that doesn't end well. Internal locus is where you say, I got to own this. And I'm not saying God's not a part of it, but you own it. You take responsibility. If I don't have an internal locus of control, I'm always going to be conditioned to look outside myself.
Yes.
That professor, that employer, that husband, or whatever. So I think the first step is moms and dads are going to need to say, honey, I want you to really develop a kind of a spirit that says, if it is to be, it's up to me.
Mhm.
You're about to go off to college. You'll have to take that with you your freshman year.
Yeah.
So that would be the one thing. And then I think the other thing I would add is I don't think we really develop a sense of responsibility until we get to own something. It's where
Mhm.
mom or dad say, Naomi, it's yours, honey. It's going to live or die with you.
Yeah.
And kind of it's scary at first, but then you go, yeah, it is up to me. There's something I think within us that God put there that we want something to be up to us.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'll stop
Oh,
there.
yeah, that was great. I love that. Um, coming to like a Christian perspective, how has your faith influenced the way you approach leadership?
Oh gosh, it's the biggest factor. I think the best leadership book in the world is the Bible. I really do. And the reason we don't always hear that or say that is because we've been reading the Bible with a fellowship mindset, which is appropriate. We're supposed to follow Jesus,
Yes.
follow the rules, follow the commandments. And that's true. But think about what Jesus said. Follow me and I will make you fishers of men. You
Mhm.
stay with me long enough, you're going to be influencing people. So a mature Christian is not just a follower, she's a leader too. I think we don't see that part. We somehow lost it in our lens of follow, follow, follow. So the Bible is clearly my number one influence. So when I just spoke at a big business and I didn't say, open your Bibles. I didn't say that. But everything I said, you could have said, oh, that's Ephesians 5. Oh, that's John 3. Oh, but I was using language that they would understand and they seemed to like it because I think the world is a little hungry, maybe not a little, like really hungry for sustainable leadership. That's not a power trip. It's serving. It's something that sees beyond my own life and what I gain from it. So we teach biblical leadership even in public schools. 80% of our work is with public schools.
Yeah.
I love coming to Christian schools and faith-based organizations because they're my people,
Mhm.
but we get to work with pro sports team, NFL, baseball, NBA. It's just so much fun to see them hunger for it
Yeah.
if you use language that they understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you talked to many different schools. What was like one reason you started talking to like youth or
Yeah.
parents about leadership and how
Yeah.
that works?
I'll tell you, I do think it was a God thing, but that's not a fair answer. God told me, so I won't say that, even though it's true. Okay. But I would say this. At the beginning of my career, I just got to thinking, I want to be strategic with my time.
Mhm.
I'm 20 years old or whatever, and I don't know how much time I've got. I was given a time. When I was 20 years old, I contracted type 1 diabetes, and it was 1980 at the time. They gave me 20 years to live. So I was thinking, oh my gosh, OMG, I've only got 20 years. If that's true, how do I use it? That forced me, even though I'm still around, years later, that forced me to think, where do I want to invest my time? Well, I picked young people because I thought, well, they're more moldable than
Mhm.
older people, and they're going to be around longer. So it just seemed like a wise decision. I also think young people are kind of more radical than older people, like, let's go change the world. I like to use the phrase, let's charge hell with a water pistol, let's do this. So, and I think Jesus picked 12 young disciples.
Mhm.
Here's how I know this. I'm giving way longer an answer than I should.
Oh, all good.
There's a passage in Luke that said it was time for people in Israel to pay taxes, and Jesus and Peter went to pay taxes. And I start thinking, how come just Jesus and Peter? How come the other 11 disciples didn't go? Here was the law. The law was when you're 20 and over, you had to pay taxes. Teenagers didn't have to pay. That makes me think Jesus probably picked Peter maybe at 20, 21. The other guys, your age.
Yeah.
He picked teenagers knowing we're going to change the world because they're going to be around a while and they're going to actually think they can do this. So I felt like if I'm going to build leaders, I don't want to start when they're 55 years old. I want to start when they're 15 years old. So that's kind of how I made that decision.
Yeah. Okay, so how would you define a great leader today?
Wow. I think a great leader, this will not surprise you, is really about serving. So they somehow in their head think, I lead by serving, and I serve by leading. So somebody needs to run point in almost any organization. You don't just, it's like herding cats. Everybody's going to do their own thing, even if they're
Yeah.
good people. So you need a point person, but I think they need to see, I need to see beyond myself, and it's about serving. So something I'm going to say later today when I'm with you all is I think great, great, great leaders think big picture,
Mhm.
think long term, and think high road. So big pictures, I see way beyond my own life and not how this is going to benefit me. Long term, I'm not going to just see this weekend. How's this going to impact me long term or
Mhm.
impact the people long term?
Mhm.
And I make long term decisions. I think the further out you can see into the future, the better the decision you make today. And then high road, something John Maxwell taught me. And then you look at the scripture and you think Jesus taught this. Always take the high road with people. And that simply means if they treated you not so well, don't just parrot back that same behavior. Now you just got to squabble. Take the high road. There's fewer people on the high road, and it's always a better place where you pull them up rather than lower yourself to that base level of, people fight over the stupidest things, don't they, today? And
Mhm.
don't you even look at adults sometimes and go, what are you guys bickering about
Yes.
politically or whatever? So I think a great leader is think big picture, think long term, think high road. If you'll take that off to college, I'm telling you, you'll be head and shoulders above your peers because most people don't.
So, what biblical principles do you believe are most important for young leaders to embrace?
Oh my gosh. Well, this is going to sound a little repetitious, but the model Jesus gave us at the Last Supper was so brilliant. Remember what he did? He not only had the cup and the bread, which we now enjoy today as communion, but remember he took off his robe and he grabbed a bowl and a towel and he starts washing their feet. Well, you probably know this, but back in that day, there was usually a servant at the door, especially at Passover, to wash everybody's feet. Well, they'd forgotten to arrange the servant at the door to do that. So Jesus thought, instead of calling him out on it, like, who forgot to get the servant? He said, I'm just going to give him a little show and tell here. And he didn't give a sermon on servant leadership. He did it. And of course, Peter's so awkwardly uncomfortable. Oh, you know, you can't wash my feet. Jesus said, shut up. I got to wash your feet, buddy. If you don't let me wash your feet, I can't wash the whole thing. And you're going to want me to wash the whole thing. So the bottom line was he modeled for them this example because when he got done, he said, do you see what I've just done for you? And they all went, uh-huh. He said, if I then, your Lord and Master, your leader, have washed your feet, you ought to be washing each other's feet. So I feel like that's the number one picture we have. Now, that looks a lot of different ways. It's not always literally washing feet, but it might be maybe picking up the trash in the parking lot when it's really not your job after all. You're a senior in high school. You're about to graduate. Because where's that custodian? But you're picking it up because you own it. There's
Yes.
that ownership thing. It could be a number of things, but it's you doing that high road thing again and serving. Here's why I think this is huge. It's not strategic planning, even though that's good, or having a big vision, although that's good.
Mhm.
If you start modeling service, it's contagious. It just
Mhm.
is. In fact, good and bad behavior is contagious when a leader's doing it. So I feel like that's the first and foremost thing you want to do when you lead is just model that kind of conduct and see how it spreads. Then you can work on the vision and
Yes.
the strategy and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have like one more closing question is, but you kind of talked about it already, but you talk about many great things. But what is one thing you think would apply to every generation, young adults, old, any generation? What's one thing that you want them to take away?
Well, Naomi, I mentioned to you earlier that we teach leadership with images, with
Mhm.
pictures. I want to give you an image. It's one of our 130 habitudes. We call them habitudes, images that form leadership habits and attitudes. But it's an image that we call cathedral building. Cathedral building. And you see the picture of this beautiful cathedral under construction. So the story is there was a busy downtown area one day, and a man walked out in the middle of his lunch hour, looked across the street, and saw this construction site, but he wasn't quite sure what it was. It wasn't done enough to know what they were doing. So he looked at his watch and thought, I got 5 minutes. I'm going to go over and ask these guys what they're building over here. So he crossed at the crosswalk. There was three guys over there, all builders with helmets on, sweating, you know, bent over a wheelbarrow, laying bricks, you know. And he tapped one of them on the shoulder and he said, "Hey, tell me what you're doing here." Well, the builder didn't even look up at him. He just grunts and goes, "I'm laying bricks." Well, that was true. He was, but that wasn't the answer he was looking for. So he went to a second guy and asked him what he's doing. Well, this guy at least looked up at him, but he said, "I'm drawing a paycheck." Well, that was true too. On Friday, he was going to get paid, but that still wasn't what he was looking for. So he goes to the third guy who's just as sweaty and he says, "What are you doing?" And this third guy stood up and with a big smile on his face said, "I'm building a cathedral." Now, all three guys were telling the truth, weren't they?
Yeah.
But one only saw the here and now, one saw next Friday,
Yeah.
but one guy saw the big picture.
Mhm.
I think the number one lesson for any generation is don't lose sight of the fact that you're building a cathedral.
Mhm.
When I talk to teachers, Mondays and Tuesdays may be hard. This doesn't feel very, Fridays feel good. Monday
Yeah.
doesn't feel good, you know? You feel like you're laying bricks. Don't lose sight of the fact that you're building a cathedral. There are hundreds of you guys in this high school, and you're a cathedral going out into the world, you know, wherever you go. And I know that sounds kind of dorky and cheesy, but I think if anybody of any generation can keep their eye on the fact that I'm actually building a cathedral right now, even though I'm sweating and it's not glitzy and glamorous, I think we can sustain that and actually get the job done.
So that's all I have for today. I am so happy that I could talk with Dr. Tim Elmore, and I hope that everybody else watching or listening at DMC could just see him and hear what he has to say to grow as a better leader.